is the cultivation of Vril, the cultivation of life force energy through...
Hello, friends. Continuing with the quest to understand Vril. My first question is, did Bulwer-Lytton come up with the idea all by himself, or kind of what is the genesis of this? The idea that the concept of Vril, as in called Vril, predates this book, I got from the Morning of the Magicians, footnote, page 147. And I looked at that yesterday, and I found some writings from the very late 1860s in French. I searched through them, did not find anything called Vril spelled that way, but maybe there's something else in there that is conceptually Vril. So one thing I tried was, if you've never done this, this is fun. Google Ngram, and Google will search all of its books for whatever phrase you want. Let me make myself a little bit smaller here. So if we put in Vril, we get kind of a strange distribution. 1871, there. So all of a sudden in 1871, there's all kinds of mentions of Vril. Now that, of course, is the publication of The Coming Race. It kind of rapidly decreases. There's another bump here, and then it settles into very, very little discussion of Vril throughout most of the 20th century until we've got a big uptick there. So that's kind of interesting to look at. And then we've got this bump pre-1871. So I thought, oh, maybe that's the original source of Vril, as in named Vril. And one of the things you can do with Google Ngram is you can go by decade. So let's look at the early 1800s, and I already did this. It references The Coming Race, which there's no way this was published in 1840, so Google is wrong. It's catching this cable dated Paris from Vril to Glasgow. Must be a city that is being abbreviated as Vril, so also not what we are interested in. Parisians, Vril-ya, so this says it's 1803. That is misdated, because this is a review of a book that was written in 1871. Zanoni, 1842. So that is another Bulwer-Lytton book, I believe. From the House Assembly of Lower Canada. So there's various things that, here it is. It's probably actually just hyphenated from Avril, which is April in French, I'm guessing. Yeah. First Monday of April. So that's where it's showing up there a lot. Encyclopedia Britannica. So try this one that says it's from 1823. That might be a little bit more clear. Can we zoom in so that you can see? So there's Vril. Whoops. Vrulia has the same derivation as the word Vril, which in blah, blah, blah to blah, 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 synonymous, castle name. So this is a geographical place name, common Latin designation for various regions inhabited by the Slavs. Okay. So Slavic word, the V and the R together actually makes sense there. Anyway, not the same Vril. So to make a long story short, I have seen nothing that leads me to believe that Bulwer-Lytton didn't make up the name Vril all by himself, and that there is no kind of predating thing called Vril. Though, if you look at Blavatsky, which we will look at in some depth, and you look at other people today who are still talking about this concept of Vril, they will tell you that it is just one of many names for the same thing, which is just universal energy that can be harnessed by humans. It's the chi, it's other stuff. They can list off a whole bunch of names and mystic kind of traditions and that sort of thing, and, you know, pour more weak coffee onto that. It wasn't an original idea that there was this kind of force out there. It's actually kind of like the Force, George Lucas's Force. You know, in 200 years, Star Wars will be a documentary. Maybe there'll be a religion based on it. Who knows? The idea of that being out there is not original, but I think he called it Vril. Like that was his name for it in his piece of fiction that he wrote. And if you go to Blavatsky, Isis Unveiled, maybe, let's just read it online so we can search it. Vril describes it as the Vril used by, let's go to the footnote, 229. We apprehend that the noble author coined his curious names by contracting words in classical languages. Gi would come from goon, or gune, I'm not sure what language that is. Vril from virile. Absurd and unscientific as may appear, our comparison of a fictitious Vril, so there she knows that he is telling a story, invented by the great novelist, and the primal force of the equally great experimentalist, which I think she's talking about Faraday there, the Kabbalistic astral light, it is nevertheless the true definition of this force. So even though Bulwer-Lytton was just writing a story, he was actually telling a true story and defining something that was true. At least the details about Vril were true. So that is cherry picking at its finest there. Discoveries are constantly being made to corroborate the statement thus boldly put forth. We'll get to that later. All of the amazing scientific discoveries that she says are proving that Vril is real. And one of the things that struck me as I was reading that passage today was that it's actually really, really similar to what you see pseudoscientists and pseudoarchaeologists doing now, which is saying, look, we have these ideas. All of the science is turning our way. Things are lining up. And that's because they're cherry picking, claims about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis finally comport with Atlantis. And I'm going to start holding my watermelon and waving my arms around. So we will get to that later. 140 or 50 years later, these guys are still doing the same thing where they're saying, look, modern science is finally revealing the truth of these notions that we have been putting forth about lost civilizations and lost continents. And, never mind that modern science has actually done the exact opposite. But this is the image that comes to mind when I see people reaching like this for a second. You think the kitten can make it? He's so close. He's so close. Give it a try. Give it a try. Come on. You got this. To end the story, I see no evidence so far that Vril, as in something called Vril, predates Bulwer-Lytton's book. I presume that he took the general idea that there was kind of an energy out there that could be harnessed by beings, that he got that from the currents of mysticism and occultism and things like that were already floating around at the time. But it looks to me like he's the one who named it Vril, and that's the one that the Theosophists pick up the ball and run with. So I think the next thing I'll do is either get into the Blavatsky stuff or possibly look at Bulwer-Lytton more himself, because this book mentions all kinds of things he was into, and there's other stuff online. And actually, I posted the video from yesterday on the Fraudulent Archaeology Wall of Shame, and I got some really interesting comments. Let's look at them. Okay, here's my post. Wait, is this related to the UK broadcast hijacking from the 70s? I have no idea. I don't know who that green guy is. My linguistically curious side wonders if Bulwer-Lytton just used a twee spelling of Vril to describe his energy. Yeah, I think that that's the case. At least that's what Blavatsky thought. Remember, this was just as Eastern concepts of chi and prana were entering the European mainstream of esoterica, and Lytton wanted to use the concept while staying staunchly Eurocentric. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. The stuff was floating around out there. You might want to watch Weird Reads with Emily Louise on YouTube. There's a lot on Blavatsky. I know people have been telling me this is a rabbit hole. I know it's a rabbit hole, but sometimes you got to go down the rabbit hole. The original book wasn't claiming anything real. It was a fantasy novel. Also had nothing to do with Aryans. That's not true. I quoted it. It does talk about Aryans. Where's my book? So if it has nothing to do with Aryans, then why on page 118 does it say, seems to me clear by the roots of their language descended from the same ancestors as the great Aryan family, from which in varied streams has flowed the dominant civilization of the world. It absolutely has stuff to do with Aryans. And this was at the beginning of when the Aryan craze was picking up steam. So, it was right there. Modern mystic white supremacist sounds like the name of a band I'd probably quite like the sound of, but never admit to enjoying because of their name. Sounds like a brand of hemorrhoid cream. Yeah, there's actually some product. What was it? Bovril, which is like a meat mash or something. This is not all the comments, because I know there were some actually pretty negative ones earlier. Theosophy was built on this. I don't know if it was built on it, but she sure incorporated it and gave it meaning inside the theosophical framework. I don't want to waste my brain cells on that propaganda. Fine, you do you. That's all part of the Blavatsky nonsense, theosophy. Yeah, I know. If I recall correctly, the Tool Society was linked to it. Sorry, in the early 20s last century. Yeah, that is coming. Oh, don't forget the everlasting impact of that UK delicacy, Bovril. Bovril is a trademark name of a thick and salty meat extract paste. Bovril can be made into a drink.
Bovril beef.
Drink it.
Try this brown liquid.
Drink it. I am sold. Literally named for the fictional substance, if I remember correctly. I thought this one mainly died a death back in the noughties. Well, you thought wrong. If anything, the noughties were a low point. It is coming back. We will maybe take a minute here and look at some of the newer Vril books. Super Mario Brothers 1993. I don't get that one either. But it looks like Vril has penetrated into the world of video games and manga and that sort of thing, which is interesting. This is the Helena Blavatsky side of the coin. The other side of the coin is Savitri Devi, which I have not Googled that yet. I have to say, I find the link between late 19th century beliefs like Vril, Theosophy, and spiritualism and the occult fringes of racism and white supremacy really interesting as a historical topic. Yeah, me too, Nicholas Keith. That's why, it's funny. I post things like this on Fraudulent, Archaeology, Wall of Shame, and people are like, oh, you shouldn't read that. You shouldn't spend any time on that. Don't talk about that. It's like, well, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, I don't understand why you would want to waste your time even commenting on something. To me, this is like so obviously an interesting topic. If you don't want to watch the videos, don't want to watch the videos. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. But to say that it's stupid and we shouldn't talk about it. If you look at the 2000s, so those are obviously just reprints. Reprint. Maybe people are just reading this shit now. There's disagreement over whether he was a good author or not. I actually found this book to be pretty boring. There are several histories of mystery of Vril power. Hitler was attracted to the stories of Vril power, an amazing force. I'm wondering how well some of these books about, Hitler's interest in it and the Nazis' interest in it, how well researched they are, because if they just go back and just kind of play off of this, not quite as interesting. I would like to see some other scholarship. The Path of Vril, Venusian Secrets of Longevity and Rejuvenation. Author and philanthropist Valiant Thor dictated this book almost a century ago, as he was settling into his role as commander of the Venusian forces on Earth. Well, that sounds stupid. Mount Shasta. We need Vril more than ever to counteract Antichrist evil that seems to be sweeping the world under the false guise of making America great again. All kinds of stuff about sexuality, which also seems to be an undercurrent. Orgon and the orgasm and Vril, and so male virility and power, and it's all kind of tied into it.
Cultivation of Vril, the cultivation of life force energy through a great diet, strong, powerful disciplines, waking up early, meditating consistently so you can be aligned, with the universal forces, not releasing your sexual energy willy-nilly, cultivating, harnessing that energy to have some anger, have some power, have that little bit of an edge to the work that you produce.
To sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
That's right. All right. That's all I want to talk about today. If anybody knows of a source that mentions Vril, as in the Vril, that predates Bulwer-Lytton in 1871, please let me know. So far, the comments have been very helpful. So guide me down the rabbit hole if you have a suggestion. And more coming soon.